So we're now 21 games into this championship season, and we've got a few talking points to go over in today's video. So what I thought we'd do for today is go over the current championship table, look at who the favourites are for promotion and relegation, as well as going over all the games that went on in midweek. And before we do get into anything, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. As always, their link will be in the top line of the description down below. Over on the OneFootball app, you can go ahead and check out the championship table, and at the bottom at the moment, I have to say, it is very close, and you'd have to be a brave man to be backing who's going down at the moment, because I don't think it's quite as clear-cut as back in the current three that are in there. Leeds and West Brom seem to have quite a lead at the top of the championship, but then moving past that and looking at the playoff picture, once again, really not a lot in that part of the table, so you can go over to the OneFootball app, check out how all the sides are currently getting on in the championship, and of course you can go ahead and track all the games which are going on at the weekend as well. We've got a lot of championship action coming our way over this festive period. So starting the video out, as you can see there, that is the current championship table for how it is lining up. So starting out at the bottom of the table, so the current bottom three, we've got Barnsley, Wigan and Stoke. I think you can stake a claim for probably Barnsley at the moment are the nailed on favourites to be going down. Obviously only 2 wins so far this season. They have shown positive signs going forward, but conceding over 40 goals by this point, as well as their record away from home, things aren't looking great for them at the moment. I think you'd have to say that the January transfer window would have to be the turning point in their season if they can get in any defenders. Moving past that then to Wigan and Stoke City, two very interesting clubs at the moment. Wigan, I feel like, have put in several decent performances so far this season when they've ended up not picking up a result from that game, and that's really what's been hindering them so far. Then we get to Stoke, one of the most inconsistent sides in the championship. On their day, good enough to survive, especially looking at that starting 11. You do feel as if there's still quite a bit of toxicity around the club, but you saw the result in midweek, then beating Luton by 3-0, which we'll get onto later in the video. And then that takes us to Luton above them. Currently got the worst defensive record in the championship. They can score goals, but their record away from home, I think come the end of the season, it's going to be very close between Luton and Stoke. Moving on past that, you then got Middlesbrough, Huddersfield, Reading and Charlton. I'd say that up to 17th, that's probably the bracket of clubs we're looking for who are going to be in contention for that bottom three. And in the top two at the moment, it is looking pretty nailed on. An 11-point gap at this point in the season for Leeds and West Brom over Fulham in third is an absolutely massive, I mean, that's a mountain to climb for anyone to go on and catch those two. But then looking past that at the rest of the playoff picture, there's absolutely nothing in it at the moment. There's only 4 points separating third in the championship to 12th in the championship, so week to week that's going to continue to change. I'd be interested to know from you guys, who are you currently backing for the top 6, because at this point in time you really can't call it, it's so topsy-turvy. So I'd be interested to get your guys' thoughts on the current championship table, but we will now move on into talking about some of the games which went on in midweek, starting out with the games that went on Tuesday, and then we'll end with the games that went on Wednesday yesterday. So starting out with Millwall, who picked up another 3 points on the road as they beat Bristol City by 2-1. Now Millwall really lately have been picking up their away from there, now unbeaten in their last 5 championship matches, and were fully worth their victory in this one at Ashton Gate, you have to say. Bristol City started out well, Vyman had a decent chance but couldn't convert, but after 11 minutes it was Millwall who took the lead. Jed Wallace, a player banging form for Millwall at the moment. He beat Daniel Bentley at his near post, and that's now 8 goals and 6 assists for Wallace so far this season. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some interest in him in January, because I think he's been absolutely fantastic for them so far. Millwall's game plan in this one I thought was very effective as well. They limited Bristol City they allowed them to have the ball, but when they got into threatening positions they pressed them and ultimately nullified them for the majority of this game. They doubled their lead in the second half as they like to from a set piece, this time Jake Cooper heading that one in. O'Dowd did get one back for Bristol City, and for the last sort of 10 minutes they were really pushing, trying for that equaliser. Bilkowski had to pop up with a couple of saves, but in the end Millwall did walk away with all 3 points, and this is one of the reasons why Leeds and West Brom are pulling away at the top of the championship, because no one really in that playoff bracket below can put together sort of a consistent winning streak like those two sides have done. You know, Bristol City, we saw them fantastically beating Fulham last time, but then losing at Ashton Gate against Millwall, and that's pretty much the playoff picture with every side. And speaking of the top two, next up we had Leeds beating Hull by 2-0. Now in the first half, which there wasn't really that much in it, neither side had a shot on target. Leeds had a lot of chances that sort of just flashed wide or were going over the crossbar and things like that, but in the second half they certainly turned the screw and it became a lot more lively with both sides having chances. Eventually Leeds did take the lead in the 73rd minute. Once again, some fantastic work from Helder Costa, a player who has been popping up quite a lot lately with Leeds for some big moments. He flashed the ball across the box, and in the end the Hull defender ended up putting the ball into the back of his own net. And then game-changing moments like this, Hull have a fantastic chance going forward with Tom Eaves. Kiko Casilla makes a save, and then 20 seconds later Leeds have the ball in the back of the net. It was a fantastic counter-attacking move. Bamford initially hits the post, and then Alioski finishes from a really tight angle. But for Leeds to have an 11-point gap at this point in the season on third place, for the winning run run they're on at the moment, the way they like to play football, pressing the opposition, and the way they handle themselves on the ball moving forward, they can be so fast on the counter-attack. We've seen that several times with some of the goals they've been scoring lately. I mean, Leeds would massively have to blow it from here. I mean, the same can be said for West Brom as well, but the thing for me is, I'm just looking at all the sides below the top two at the moment, I'm just not sure who I'm looking at there, who I think is capable of putting on a consistent win of, you know, like 6 games on the bounce winning streak. I'm not sure anyone's got that in them apart from the top two. Then we had Forest drawing 1-1 with Middlesbrough. An interesting game. I think for the first half, Forest were definitely the team on top. They just couldn't quite turn that into a goal. In the second half, eventually, though, Ryan Yates turning in a fantastic cross by Matty Cash gave Forest the lead. But it was their inability to kill off this game and get that second goal which ultimately led Middlesbrough to getting back into it. I thought the Middlesbrough reacted well after a fairly poor first half, especially when they went behind. Woodgate made a couple of changes, and in the end, they got back into it with a Paddy McNair penalty. I think it was the right decision, really. Marvin Johnson was tripped as he went through on goal by Robinson, and rightly so, I think they did get that penalty. Scoring goals at home this season has been a little bit of an issue for Nottingham Forest on the road. I think they've been fantastic so far, got a really good record. They're currently 3rd in the Championship for the best away record, but looking at their home form, they're 16th in the Championship for that. In the 9 games they've had at the City Ground so far this season, they've only scored 10 goals, so they're pretty much averaging 1 goal a game, which isn't doing enough to kill off games. I think ultimately that's something they need to look into. You know, in this game they certainly had chances to do that. You know, Yates at the crossbar, Graben had a chance which just got away from him, Joe Lolly had a chance as well. They had a number of openings but just couldn't kill this one off. For me, I think that Forest are a good bet for the top 6 this season. It's just that inability to score at home which is letting them down from a real challenge for the top 2 this year. In terms of Middlesbrough, I think they are improving. Only 1 loss in their last 6 games now. Their next 2 games at the Riverside, though, absolutely massive against Stoke City and Huddersfield. And then we had North End finally getting back to winning ways after 4 consecutive defeats in the league. We beat Fulham by 2-1 in what was a pretty mad game in this one. We had 2 red cards and a lot of other controversial decisions by the referee. North End started out well, though. We took the lead. Shunny Maguire, a player who has been getting quite a bit of criticism from the fans lately. I think rightly so, not been putting in the best performances, but in this game, much back to the player that we all know he can be. Turning in a Billy Birmingham corner after 23 minutes, North End got off to a really good start. We were then boosted by Dennis Adoy getting a red card for Fulham. Pretty ridiculous, really, going in for an elbow on Patrick Bauer when the play had already moved on. It was a ridiculous challenge from Adoy. I don't know what he was trying. But then Preston were then reduced to 10 men just before half-time. Joe Rafferty being shown a red card for a challenge on Joe Bryan. Seeing it in real time, I thought that both players were going for the ball. Bryan just got there before Rafferty, and Rafferty's ended up catching Bryan. But watching the replay, I think it was the right decision. You know, his foot was very high and it was a dangerous challenge. Another one that does have to be mentioned, Ben Pearson was very lucky in this game not to be sent off. I love Ben Pearson, but he was a walking red card in this game. He went in for a 2-footed challenge, which I think, you know, if the referee had seen the replay of that one, probably would have been shown a red card. And tempers were flaring pretty high for this one, but I have to say that Preston, I mean, the second half, the 2 red cards definitely had an influence on the game because the second half was so stretched. It was end-to-end. It was actually quite an entertaining game of football. Eventually, North End did make it 2, though. A fantastic pass from Billy Bowden into Brad Potts. Bowden, I thought, had a fantastic game. Rodak made a good save from Potts, but eventually David Nugent followed it in for his first goal back at North End. Honestly, the place went fantastic when Nugent finally bagged. It's been a long time coming, but it's great to see that sort of thing. Fulham did get back into their game. Mitrovic late on equalising with a fantastic shot from outside the box. That was actually their only shot on target for the entire game, which tells you something about Fulham from this one. But North End ended up, rightly so, I think, with all 3 points. Fulham, they've had a bit of an issue coming up against top 6 sides so far this season. I think it's with their play style. Obviously, the red card did affect it. They bought Cavallero off to bring on an extra defender to give them a bit more balance, but I think they're a bit pedestrian, a bit slow in possession, that when teams like to press them, they can become unstuck in games. Obviously, missing Tom Kenny had an influence on this one, but Scott Parker's still got a couple of things to look into. 2 losses on the bounce now for Fulham, but Preston, nice to get back to winning ways. And we had Huddersfield beating Charlton by 1-0, a massive result for Huddersfield on the road this one. The winner coming in the 92nd minute for them, and I think that for the majority of the second half especially, Huddersfield were the aggressor. You know, you can see by the match stats on screen there that Charlton struggled to create much going forward, and Dylan Phillips was really keeping the minute for the majority of this one with a string of saves in the second half. But one of the game-changing moments was Charlton having a goal ruled out, Lyle Taylor putting it into the back of the net. I think that Sarr was flagged offside in the build-up to that one. I've watched the replay back several times, and I think that the officials got that one wrong. I think that Charlton had been quite hard done by there. Obviously, looking at the general flow of the game, it probably was Huddersfield who deserved to go on and win it, but for Charlton to have a goal like that ruled off, it's a tricky one where you stand with it then. But it was Matt Daly, the academy graduate from Huddersfield, scoring his first professional goal. The result now sees Huddersfield 4 points above the relegation zone, whereas Charlton, winless in their last 9 games, have a real possibility of being dragged down into this relegation scrap. Then Then we had Stoke beating Luton by 3 goals. Still a massive result for Stoke, down in the bottom 3 of the Championship. Really drags Luton back into it. Obviously, their away record so far this season hasn't been great, but considering the most amount of goals this far into the season in the Championship, it's an alarming statistic for Luton. But Joe Allen seemed to be the real standout player for Stoke in this game. Very tenacious in midfield, was at the centre of a lot of the good things they were doing moving forward for this one. Brilliant battling in midfield for winning the ball back for the first goal, which was smashed in by James McLean, and then 2 more goals from Joe Allen set up Stoke for all 3 points in this one. Interestingly, both goal scorers in this one cupping their ears to the Stoke fans. I don't like it. I think it's unnecessary, really. You know, beating Luton by 3 goals to 0 doesn't undo the years of underachieving by those players and the rest of this Stoke squad. So it's unnecessary. I don't know why they did it, really. Ultimately, Stoke is still in the bottom 3 as well. It was a fantastic performance, but it just left a bit of a sour note in a couple of fans' mouths after that one, and I can understand why. Barnsley against Reading ending as a 1-1 draw. Another frustrating result for Barnsley, who put in a decent performance going forward, had a lot of chances moving it, but ultimately, defensively, letting Reading back in with quite a needless goal, really, ended up costing them. And it's these sort of games which will determine their season, you know. Going at Oakwell from a winning position, not to pick up all 3 points, not a great place for them to be in at the moment. But they had some decent moves going forward. Connor Chaplin had a really good chance in the first half, which was well saved by Raphael. Eventually, they did take the lead. A bit of a ridiculous goal, really. Reading trying to play out from the back. They were pressed. Eventually, Woodrow got in, and it was an awful blunder by Reading, but fair play. Barnsley took full advantage of that. Moving forward, they tried to get that second goal, but Raphael made a couple of decent saves to keep Reading in it. Reading not really at their best for this one at all, I must say. They weren't really trying to play through midfield. They were going a little bit more direct. Eventually, they did get back into the game, though, and criminal defending by Barnsley once again. I feel like a bit of a broken record talking about Barnsley this season, but it was a corner that was swung in, and it was one of those corners where 9 times out of 10 you'd expect it to be cleared by the first defender, then play to moves on. For whatever reason it wasn't. It ended up trickling towards Lucas Jow, who got his second goal in as many games and equalised for Reading, and in the end that was how that game did finish. So another frustrating one for Barnsley. They're not going to be able to turn their form around if they keep dropping points like that. QPR beat Birmingham by 2 goals to 0, and QPR, they've only done it again. Another clean sheet for them in the Championship. What is going on? But back-to-back wins for QPR, who've definitely picked themselves up lately. Birmingham, on the other hand, I thought they were poor in this one, especially compared to their last game. It looked like a bit of a leggy, turgid performance. No real creativity or spark from Birmingham in this game. The opening goal from Grant Hall coming from an Eze free kick swung into the box. Really scrappy. Birmingham couldn't clear their lines, and in the end, Hall got the final touch on it to make it 1-0 to QPR. But the second goal from Esai Samuel, absolutely fantastic goal. Picks the ball up inside his own half, and then he's got a 1v1 battle with Maxime Collin. He manages to rinse past him. He's putting the ball on his left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. You don't know when he's going to pull the trigger, but when he does, it's a superb finish past Truman into the roof of the net to make it 2-0 for QPR, and ultimately that killed off the tie. One of the goals of midweek. Fantastic finish from him. Brilliant pace going forward, and ultimately that was enough for QPR to secure all 3 points against a Birmingham side who didn't look their usual selves. Quite poor at home in that one. Brentford against Cardiff up next. Brentford now just 1 point off the top 6, and some fantastic play for this game, I have to say. At the weekend, we saw a bit of showboating by Pereira and Diangana at West Brom. Definitely 2 of the most skilled players in the Championship, but people can't be forgetting about Ben Rama. The assist for the first goal, absolute genius from Ben Rama. A cheeky little roulette past Marlon Pack and a great little dink into Mbemo to make it 1-0 for Brentford. He was involved in the second goal as well, pretty much opening in that second half with a goal for Brentford. Nice ball in, and then Ollie Watkins heading in his 13th goal of the season. And for the first sort of 60 or so minutes of this game, Brentford were in total control of it. They were creating a lot of chances going forward and not letting Cardiff have much of a sniff. But Marlon Pack got Cardiff in with a fantastic strike. Nice set piece routine from that one. Lee Tomlin had a chance which was tipped over by David Ray, but in the end that late surge from Cardiff wasn't enough for them. And given the flow of the whole game, I think that Brentford were deserved winners. And I mean, they're in for a shot at the top 6 this season. There's no doubt about that. It's so close at this part of the table. Derby against Sheff Wednesday was a classic game of 2 halves, really. Sheff Wednesday good in the first half, poor in the second half, and then the opposite of that can be said for Derby. Sheff Wednesday took the lead expertly. A poor pass from Forsyth playing out from the back straight into the path of Barry Bannon. Bannon lays off Fletcher, and then outside the box with a first time finish, brilliantly glides it into the bottom corner. Fantastic finish from one of the most underrated strikers in the league, I'd say. And Sheff Wednesday were looking good for that first half. They were creating a lot of openings going forward, and if they had carried that momentum into the second half, I think they would have gone on to win this game. But for whatever reason, the substitutes looked to be a little bit negative from Gary Monk, looked to be the changes of a manager looking to hold out on this game, opposed to getting that second goal and killing it off, because Derby were there for the taking in that first half. They were really poor. But in the second half, the momentum switched a little bit. Wednesday weren't really so keen of getting out of their own half, and Derby were allowed to come onto them a little bit more. That benefited their game plan. Derby made their changes. They brought on Wigan and Marriott. In the end, it was Marriott who went on to win the penalty. The penalty, a little bit soft for me. Odebaggio and Marriott having a bit of a tangling in the box. In the end, Chris Martin stuck that away. Odebaggio has given away a few penalties so far this season. Ultimately, he was sent off late on as well for a second bookable offence, but finishing as a 1-1 draw, probably justice for how it was a game of two halves, I'd say. Swansea against Rovers ended as a 1-1 draw in the end. Blackburn continuing their impressive run, unbeaten in 5 now. The same can't be said about Swansea, who are yet to pick up a win in their last 6 championship matches. The only sort of saving grace for Swansea is the fact that despite their recent run, they're only 3 points off the playoffs, showing how close this league is at the moment. But it was Blackburn who took the lead. Danny Graham, after just 4 minutes, slotting home against his former side. Nice assist from Adam Armstrong after Swansea had given it away cheaply in midfield. Didn't take them long to get back into the game though. After 10 minutes, a ball swung in from the corner. Andre Ayew heading Swansea back level to make it 1-1. After that, the 2 other talking points from this game were the 2 red cards. Tom Carroll for 2 yellow cards and Bradley Dack both sent off in this game. I don't think that either side were particularly at their best for this one, but the point probably suits Blackburn better. Then to finish things off, we have Wigan drawing 1-1 with West Brom. Now you've got to say, probably Wigan's best performance of the season so far. They were the better team in this one, and they should have won. They should have picked up all 3 points. I thought for the majority of the game, they were creating the better chances. If it wasn't for Sam Johnson pulling off a string of saves in this one, then Wigan would have gone on to pick up all 3 points. You could tell that West Brom had rested a few players, but that shouldn't take away from what was a fantastic attacking display from Wigan. What I liked about Wigan was they weren't, scared of West Brom for this one. They didn't set off them. They were pressing them from minute 1, causing a lot of problems going forward. If it wasn't for Sam Johnson in the first half, then Wigan could have easily been 1 or 2 goals up. Eventually, they did take the lead. There was a fantastic hit from Sam Morsey, that coming off the post and ending up going in off Sam Johnson to give Wigan the lead. But as we all know, Wigan in the Championship this season cannot hold on to a lead. I saw a stat the other day saying that Wigan have dropped 20 points this season from winning positions. Had they not done that, they'd be sat 3rd in the Championship currently, which is absolutely baffling. It shows how these fine margins can affect the Championship. But in the end, a massive blunder from Jamie Jones, picking up a back pass, giving West Brom a golden opportunity to get back into the game with an indirect free kick inside the box. Everyone from Wigan stood on the line for this one, trying to keep it out, but Charlie Austin smashes it in and makes it 1-1. And I'm sure that West Brom will take the point, probably one of their worst performances of the season so far, but they've extended that lead in the meantime from 3rd place to 11 points now. But guys, there you have it. There were all the games that went on in the Championship in midweek. In terms of my result of the weekend, I think in terms of what it could mean to their season, I'm going to give it to Stoke for beating Luton by 3-0. And for my goal of the weekend, I'm going to give it to Brightisai Samuel for his fantastic solo effort against Birmingham. But apart from that, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. So if you're going to enjoy, make sure you leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. As well as that, make sure you subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. But apart from that, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.